Alright guys, we got a lot to unpack in this video, so I'm going to give you a too long didn't watch summary for the first 2 minutes of this video, and then we're going to dive right into the good stuff. So after getting laid off for the 5th time in my life last year, I decided that I had enough of working for someone else, so I decided to become a full-time trader. What did people around me have to say? Trading is gambling, it's not a replacement for a real job. Even if you did make some money, trading won't give you a consistent source of income because it's gambling. Even if you did make money for some time, for some months, it's not sustainable for you to do over the long term because it's just gambling. Those same people then recommended me to go apply for jobs and get a full-time real job instead because that's totally not gambling. I sent out nearly 500 job applications over the course of 6 months between July 2024 and December 2024, interviewed with 30 companies for positions paying $60K a year to over $300K a year. Got rejected anywhere between the first round to the final round interviews and everywhere in between. And by the end of the year, I just ended with 0 offers. And not just that, I had 0 clue as to why I was rejected at those various companies at those various rounds. On the other hand, with trading, over a year later, I understand how to win and why I lose. 95% of the time these days, I know how I could have done better to either avoid the loss or turn that loss into a smaller loss. Compare that with a decade in white collar as an employee, I still have no clue as to what gets me accepted or rejected at different stages of the job application and interview process. But how can that be? You should know why you got rejected. You should know why you got accepted, say a lot of people. Yeah, I can only guess as to why I got accepted or rejected because of how generic those rejection emails are, if they even send you one instead of ghosting you. So it's much like guessing why I didn't win while sitting at the slot machine today. But that's not gambling, right? So we're going to dive right into this video because it's time for me to come clean, guys. I've been unemployed for over a year now. I was laid off early last year randomly when upper management at the company I was working at decided to do a layoff to increase share prices of their company. And their company share prices have increased over 25% since then, so I guess their plan worked. So what they did was they told each team to select a sacrificial lamb for a layoff. And the team that I was on had 6 different people in it, including myself. The first person was an Indian guy on an H-1B work visa who my boss was close with. The second person was an Indian lady with kids going to college who my boss was even closer with. There was a third guy who was another Indian guy on an H-1B work visa as well. And the fourth person was a European lady who my boss had just helped to relocate to the US on a work visa. Fifth person was an American guy with 5 kids. I was the only person on that team who was not on a visa, didn't have 5 kids, and didn't have kids going to college. So guess who got randomly selected when it came time for the layoff? Next section, why I chose trading. So before I get into an even deeper dive into the whole meme of trading is gambling, just apply for jobs to get a normal job, bro, and why people will parrot this statement are absolute dipshits, let me just give you a quick overview as to what happened around the time that I got laid off and why I decided to get into trading. First of all, I already saw the writing on the wall 3 months before I got the talk from my manager with HR sitting in the same meeting. I saw signs that a layoff was impending for my department, and if there was someone that they were going to pick on my team, that was going to be me to get laid off. I was preemptively looking around for alternatives at the time because I knew if I got laid off again for the 5th fucking time in my life, this clown show of applying for a job, getting a job, and then after some time randomly getting laid off was going to keep going until I grow old. And like I said in a previous video, I don't want to fuck around and find out when I'm in my 40s or 50s, when I've become less employable because of age, and I have kids to pay for, kids' colleges, a house to still pay for, healthcare and retirement savings that I still have to build up, all at the same fucking time. I'm not going to fuck around and find out, get laid off at that point in time. So the reason why I chose trading was because unlike a traditional business, I could jump into this right there and then immediately. And I wouldn't have to set up a company. I wouldn't have to stump up a bunch of huge capital up front for payroll and renting a store or an office. I wouldn't have to wait for a long time to get feedback. The feedback would basically be instantaneous as to whether what I was doing was working or not. And on top of all of that, I wouldn't have to hire and deal with managing people and the whole politics, backstabbing, bullshitters and the like that come with having to deal with other human beings. So that's why I decided to choose trading. The next section is I still applied for jobs, and here's how it went. So because I've never traded seriously before, I was also still doing things for my career. So I was asking around different departments if I could potentially transfer into them, and also tapping into my network, as a lot of people like to say, talking with friends and family and ex-coworkers who had hopped to different companies, recruiters that I knew, telling all of them that I was on the lookout for a new job. So I did apply to jobs. In fact, I actually have an Excel that I maintain with all the jobs that I applied to. I applied to nearly 500 of them over the course of 6 months, like I said. 200 of them were done the old-fashioned normal way, which is basically looking up job boards like LinkedIn and Indeed and looking for open positions, going to the company's website, clicking the apply button, uploading my resume, filling up the form on the ATS, which is the applicant tracking system, and sending off the application. For these kinds of applications, I also usually put in a quick cover letter just for the sake of it. And on top of that, I also sent out another 250 applications via LinkedIn Easy Apply, because that takes a lot less time. So I got interviews with 30 companies. That's companies, not rounds, because if we counted rounds, it would be a lot more than 30. And from all of that, I got 0 offers. Next section, it's just gambling and no one can hold a normal conversation about this. So you can probably tell from watching this channel that I'm a pretty open guy. I speak without any filter. I like speaking my mind. And I've been very open to the people that I know about what I was doing. I was looking for jobs, but also getting into trading or trying to learn it up. So hopefully I would never have to look for a job again if I was to become good at trading. So what's amazing about this entire journey is that nobody I was talking to could hold a normal conversation about this entrepreneurial career path, aka trading, that I was setting out on, whether that was early on after I was freshly laid off, or even months or a year later. They still couldn't hold a normal conversation. If I told them that I was starting a normal business, they would be asking me things like, oh, so what kind of business are you starting? Say something like that they have no clue whether I'm proficient at, like starting a car repair workshop. They would ask follow-up questions like, so what kind of cars are you going to repair? Do you know how to repair cars? If not, what made you decide to go start a car repair workshop? Did you open a shop yet? What kind of cars are you going to be working on? What kind of services or repairs will you be offering? And likewise, if I told these people that I was going to open a bakery or a cafe, which by the way is something that a lot of burnt out white collar people seem to do when they decide to exit investment banking or big four consultancy, especially in Southeast Asia, they'd be asking me questions like, what kind of restaurant are you opening? Where is it going to be? How are you learning your recipes as to what to cook and how to cook them? With trading, there's none of that. There was no normal conversation. And really, I'm not expecting these people to give me like advice on how to become a good trader. I'm not expecting them to know someone who is a profitable full-time trader that they could hook me up with. I have a very low bar. Just expect like basic conversational questions like, oh, so what are you going to plan to trade? Have you traded before? Like, if not, how do you plan to just learn how to trade? There were no such questions over there. They never asked the same questions that they would have asked if I told them that I was going into a more traditional sort of business. At best, they were like, oh, good on you, bro. And I think the most transparent response that I got was from a friend's mother. She said that I don't know anything about trading, but if that's something that you're into, that you're interested in doing, you should just try it out, which I think is a fair response. But most of the time, however, it was just silence in a deafening sort of way. Some of them would actually say it out loud, that trading is hard, trading is gambling, trading is not consistent. Just apply for more jobs, bro. And this didn't happen in just the first conversations with people. It just kept going as the months went by. Like literally last week, I was talking to a family member who was asking me how I was doing. I gave a one-line update as to how my trading seems to be getting to the point of being super profitable. And their response was like, then you just have to try harder and apply for more jobs. Just apply for no more jobs, law. Next section, applying for jobs is gambling, which that's not my opinion, it's a fucking fact, and I'm about to prove it to you. So trading is hard, trading is gambling, trading is not consistent, but applying for jobs and working for someone else is not. Here are a few points to counter that. So when you apply to literally hundreds of jobs and gotten a few dozen responses back, what is that? Isn't that gambling? You're just sending down applications down a black hole, not knowing if someone's ever going to read them or ever going to get back to you with a fucking rejection message. At least with a slot machine, you get like an instant response as to whether you won or lost every time you pull the lever. But with job applications, it's just like, applications, okay, what happens now? That's not gambling. When you get an interview and you not just have to hope that your interviewer asks you questions that you're well prepared for, but your interviewer is also not having a bad day, that your interviewer likes you, that they click with you, what is that? Is that not also gambling? You gotta have all the best responses to every single possible interview question, memorized like you're some Chinese kid in Asia who has memorized every single possible sample essay to vomit the whole thing out in the exam verbatim, and still fail an interview because you have bad chemistry with the interviewer. Happened to me too, because that was actually the closest time that I got to getting a job offer. I had applied to a job where I passed the screening interview. I passed the first round, which was a pure level technical round where I think I passed with flying colors because the guy was pretty friendly and seemed to like me a lot. I passed the second round interview with the hiring manager. This time definitely with flying colors because we went way past overtime, the scheduled 1 hour session, and the guy literally told the next guy whom he had a meeting with, some guy that he worked with a back-to-back meeting scheduled for the next hour, that he needed to push that meeting because he was quote unquote having the most interesting conversation he's had in some time. The next and final round after that was with the skip manager, the hiring manager's manager. And up till that point, I really thought that I had the offer in the bag until I met that skip manager who wore a poker face the entire time and was just generally unenthusiastic. I was ghosted after that for 3 weeks before receiving a generic rejection email that read, "Thank you so much for your interest in the role at the company. We regret to inform you that we've decided to move forward with other candidates who we feel more closely fit our needs at this time. Our company is growing and we hope that you'll keep us in mind, and we encourage you to apply again in the future, or if we find a role that aligns with your skills, we'll reach out to you." Fucking lies, because they never did. That's not gambling. That's not luck dependent. You're saying all of this is because of skill. It's not because of luck. And even if you did get the job, right? You better pray hard that the hiring manager who brought you in doesn't change. You better pray hard that the company doesn't get a new round of funding or new investors anytime soon, which will lead to restructuring and cost cutting to optimize financials. You better pray that the company doesn't have a habit of playing musical chairs with the org chart literally every 6 to 12 months. Or it just doesn't axe most of its employees just out of the blue like they did with one of those companies that I did apply to and interview with, because 6 months later with that company, pretty much everyone whom I spoke to during the interview rounds had lost their jobs at the same time. So it's pretty obvious what happened over there. But all of that, that's not gambling. Next section, telling you to get a job is society's job. Like I said, even after months went by and things went from, yes, I'll start applying for jobs and seeing how things go, to I've sent out 500 applications and interviewed at 30 places and got 0 offers. All these people around me continue to insist that I should continue to persist and apply for more jobs. It's as if that most of society works for a single department that's pushing everyone else to become an employee, because whenever you present signs down to hard evidence that their advice might not be working out, these people in society will push back against your objection points as if pushing back was their goddamn job. So let's go through some points over here that people were telling me after I told them that I had sent out 500 applications, interviewed at 30 places in the last 6 months, and resulted in 0 job offers. In case it wasn't obvious enough, by the way, this was my 5th time getting laid off. So I'm not a fresh graduate applying for jobs for the first time. I'm just saying this because there are a lot of dipshits that include my own friends and family who have continued to give me all sorts of advice like you're about to hear, as if it's the first fucking time I'm applying for jobs and failing at it. So without further ado, let's get into this list over here. So the first thing is apply to fresh job listings, because the ones that have been sitting around are probably outdated. That's precisely what I was doing. I was prioritizing applying to jobs that were posted within the first 72 hours, preferably 24 hours, because I know it's a common belief and maybe a reality that a lot of recruiters and HR tends to check applications early after they get posted before they select candidates that they like to call up. So you want to be early? That was what I was doing. Second thing, you need to tailor your resume and or your cover letter to the job. I mean, I already was doing that since God knows when. Since my first job out of college, I guess. I have multiple versions of my resume for different roles. So I have lists of points that I have for each of my previous jobs in a document that I copy and paste from. So I literally have a modular resume because I can swap out my previous responsibilities and achievements within my resume to just tailor it to a specific role that's been posted. And same thing with cover letters. I have multiple paragraphs just sitting at the ready in a document that I can copy and paste from, so I can build out this modular, personalized cover letter in as little time as possible. Third point, you need to tap into your network. I already started reaching out to those people. even before I got to sit down with my manager in HR, like I said. And by the way, that's another piece of bullshit advice that I'll cover in a separate video and deep dive into. But networking has never worked for me personally or professionally. I've never gotten a job because of someone that I knew. Hell, I never even gotten a date because of someone that I knew. Best they could do was put my name and application into the system so HR has a higher chance of seeing my application. And then it's back to the lottery of hoping that the stars align from the hiring manager all the way to the working conditions after getting the offer. I think the only reason why most of these people root for me and pray that I get the job is because they get the sweet referral bonus if I was hired. So the next point is you need to just keep applying. Did you not just fucking hear the part where I said that I applied to 500 jobs in the last 6 months? And the reason why that number wasn't even higher was because I had pretty much applied to all the jobs that were open that A, didn't require me to move 3,000 miles away, while B, pay me a pitiful salary in relation to the cost of living in that country or city. I know making 300K a year was a lot, and I was willing to take a massive pay cut in my next job because I just recognized that the reality was I just needed a job while having no job and then making a switch when something better comes along, which by the way is something that I've done not just once in my life, but twice. I've just taken up the first offer that comes in, and then even if that offer was a subpar, job title, salary, whatever, I would just take it, start working, and then keep a lookout for something better. And when something better came along, I would just make that leap, and just scrub my resume as well. Next point, you need to be less picky. Just get a job, bro. That was one of the theories that a lot of people seem to have because they were under the impression that because of the level and pay grade that I had reached in my career, that I had too many expectations. And the only reason why I wasn't able to get a job was because I was being super picky about the kinds of jobs that I was applying to. Bitch, I was literally applying to every single thing that I could get my hands on. I was applying at big companies, small companies, local companies, multinational corporations, tech companies, finance companies, hardware companies with offices in little fucking factories, agencies, even fucking retail supermarkets, for God's fucking sake. Companies from China, companies from Europe, companies from America. I was applying for positions that were paying $5,000 a month, that's $60K a year, to positions paying upwards of $250,000 to $300,000 a year. If anything, I was being the opposite of fucking specific and picky. While combing through all those listings, I would just literally apply to anything that could see the tiniest potential fit and possibility that I could get the job. I would just apply to that job. This kind of patronizing advice really pisses me the fuck off because all these people assume that I'm anywhere from clueless to outright retarded for having a decade of work experience and not knowing what to do when it comes to applying for a job. But these people will do anything to brush off luck when it comes to job applications because that's going to shatter their illusion that it has somehow something to do with hard work that you're putting into making your resume, to writing your cover letter, to your interviewing skills, and nothing to do with gambling, with the fact that your job application may or may not get seen because you might get unlucky with the right or wrong time with the person screening those applications. You're not gambling when it comes to interviewers, whether they're going to like you or not. You're not gambling when it comes to the working environment getting too political. You're not gambling when it comes to the company remaining stable for as long as you work there. Spoiler alert, it's just gambling, bro. It's not having anything to do with your actual skills most of the time. Job applications and this whole thing about working for someone else is mostly gambling. That's what a lot of people in society don't want to talk about. They don't want to admit that that's the case. Next section, excuses and anything than admitting that it's all gambling. So once you get past these basic bitch pieces of advice, the objection handling of these normies in society is just astounding. Again, it's like there's some kind of invisible entity that pays them to make all these excuses and argue until they're out of breath that you should just stay the course and be a good boy who applies to all these jobs and works as an employee like everyone else. Or maybe it's just like freaking crabs in the bucket, tall poppy syndrome, where a lot of people hate seeing their family or friends have any sort of freedom. Either way, here's more objection handling that I've heard from the geniuses that I've met in society. First point, maybe it's a bad job market. Nope, I know people who have been able to make job switches just like that at the same time, including the very person that I'm dating who has done it actually twice in the past year. She's changed jobs twice in this last year. Remember those surprise layoffs from Dyson that they did in October 2024? Well, that scared a lot of other people who were still in the company. And even if they got to keep their jobs, they got worried about their job security. So I know a bunch of folks who had their jobs at Dyson, but were starting to look out because they were just afraid of being in the next round of layoffs whenever that might happen. So They switch jobs within 3 months or so. So no, applying for jobs isn't gambling. It must be about you. It must be about the bad job market. It must be about the economy. It must be this, that, and the other, but it isn't about luck, bro. Next point, you need to be putting in more time and dedication into each application. I don't know if any of these idiots who are spouting out advice like this have ever applied to a job themselves, because a lot of the times it sounds like they've never applied for a single job ever. Because I've been there and done that, whether it was just tacking on some AI slop cover letter straight out of ChatGPT onto my application and sending it off in 60 seconds, or spending literally an hour tailoring my resume and writing a heartfelt cover letter for a job that I actually wanted, that I believed that I was actually a good fit for. It didn't seem to make any difference. In fact, I'm not sure if it has made any difference. Next point, there's no real pattern to it, so you just have to keep applying. Well, isn't that gambling? Funny enough, of all the jobs that I had applied to, most of the jobs on the lower end of the pay scale, which was $5,000 to $8,000 a month, or about $60,000 to $80,000 a year, were the ones who had the quickest rejection, right? So those were the ones who usually kicked me out at the first round, or even sometimes at the recruiter screening round. I actually had better luck for jobs that were paying in the range of like $12,000 to $20,000 a month, which is between like $150,000 to $200,000 a year, because at least with those guys, I was able to make it to the second or third or sometimes even the final stage interview. But people would hear that and they would immediately retort, like, maybe you're just too overqualified, or maybe those companies are scared that they wouldn't be able to afford you, or maybe you just have too many years of job experience, maybe you have too many years of large company experience. But I thought of all of that too, and because I thought about all of that, I was also watering down my resumes depending on the company that I was applying to. I'm not stupid. Like I said, I have different versions of my resume. So one of those is the watered down version that I use for companies where I think that they wouldn't have a lot of budget to play with. So I would usually try to dumb down my experience so my application would kind of slip through, and so I'll get the interview and not scare them away. But then they go on to say like, oh, it's just a numbers game. You just have to apply for more jobs. Even after I told them I literally applied for 500 jobs without a single offer. You just have to apply for more. That's what people love to have been telling me, at least. They love to say that, but is that not gambling? I mean, talk about cognitive dissonance, right? You're just sitting at the slot machine, you've already played like 500 times and you haven't won a single time, and you don't know when the next time you'll ever win, if you'll ever win, will be. But you should just keep trying. You should just keep trying because everyone else is doing it, right? That makes it perfectly fine. So how long am I going to keep doing this? For the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? How many more 1,000 job applications would I have to send out before eventually getting an offer that I would be able to accept? And meanwhile, I'm just sitting here like a fucking sitting duck without any income, without any offers in hand, and these same dumbasses are expecting me to do the same fucking thing over and over and over again, because that's what works according to them. They refuse to acknowledge that there's other solutions out there aside from this madness of just spamming job applications. I mean, none of these people seem to have analyzed or reflected about anything that I've had to say to them and come to the conclusion that, maybe it's just a lot of gambling that's going on when it comes to applying for a job, and there's no real rhyme or reason as to why I was getting interviews or not getting interviews, why I was getting rejected, what was working, what was not working. But even if they didn't want to admit that was gambling, not once did a single person say something along the lines of, well, I don't really understand why it's happening to you, but maybe you should just consider other avenues aside from applying for jobs and working for someone else. Maybe just like do something on your own. No one said that to me. That's how I saw it, for myself at least. After so many applications, so many interviews, coming this close to getting a job offer, but just having it pulled away from me because the conversation between me and a bored Chinaman didn't click. Like, come on, man. At the same time on like the trading front, I was starting to lose less and understand more. I don't know about you, but I see that as the guy in the sky telling me that I need to just keep pushing on and decouple myself from this reliance on these abusive psychopath employers to feed me and my family. Instead, all these normies around me in society have decided to say is that I should just continue banging my head against the wall multiple times despite me having done so already for literally the last 6 months, and just keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. There's a saying that goes, which I hope many of you have heard of, which is insanity is doing the exact same thing over and over again while expecting different results. Maybe don't do that and try to work something out for yourself. No one's ever said that to me. Everyone's just come up with those imaginary excuses that they've been trained to repeat like parrots, and when every single one of those excuses on their list was exhausted, they would just go back to the default response of telling me that I just needed to apply for more jobs, and with more time I would be able to secure an offer. Next section, the final cope. It doesn't cost you anything, so it's not gambling. Yeah, but you didn't lose any money when you apply for jobs, so it's not gambling, say a lot of these objection handling NPCs. That might be true that you don't have to pay out of pocket or use your credit card when applying for a job, but from my experience, it costs anywhere from like 30 to 45 minutes for each job application, because it takes time for you to actually go comb through those listings, find a job that you want to apply to, tailor your resume and your cover letter, and then it takes time for you to fill out the form on the company's ATS, which can be quite painless nowadays, except if God help you, they're using Workday, then it takes at least 15 minutes in that case just to fill up the fucking form, even if you're copying and pasting from a ready-made template. They say time is money and money is time. Did you not just gamble away 30 to 45 minutes of your life in hopes that you would be able to secure a job interview? Multiply that by the number of jobs that you had to apply to before you could even get one single interview, and then multiply that by the number of places you had to interview at before securing a single offer. Better, to have two offers actually. For those people who say that you should be using LinkedIn Easy Apply and then rattle off a bunch of applications in a short amount of time so it just saves you time, well, I'm not even going to get into the argument whether LinkedIn Easy Apply is the better or worse way to be applying for a job. But at the end of the day, you're still looking for jobs. You're still spending time looking at the job boards, filtering out to those different jobs that are listed on there, seeing which ones you want to apply to, which ones are not for you, and then taking the time to go open that job and then actually applying to them. I don't care if it just takes 5 minutes to go find and pop off a LinkedIn Easy Apply application. That's still time. That's still gambling. And how about all the time that you spend interviewing and working unpaid for prospective employers? I mean, doing their interview case studies to prove that you're a worthy candidate. That's more time down the fucking gambling drain. Yeah, but it's normal, bro. Everyone has to have a job. Another lovely cop-out from the NPCs, another so-called line of reasoning that people love to give. Because it's totally risky to start your own business, and it's gambling to try to trade as a full-time job. But it's not risky or gambling if you have to apply for jobs and go work for someone else. So sitting in front of your computer literally for months at the end, applying for hundreds of jobs to the point where literally every single job, local job that you're willing to take and pays reasonably has been applied to, and you have exactly no income, the entire time. That's not risky and gambling. You spend hours of your day, every single day, applying for jobs, hoping that you get an interview, and spending even more time on top of that, dozens more hours interviewing at places that offer you the opportunity to speak with someone in the company, hoping that you'll be able to move on to the next round, and then hoping you'll be able to get a job offer, and then hoping that once you sign up for that job offer that the company isn't going to be toxic, that it isn't going to do a large-scale layoff in the next 6 months, that it isn't going to have a bunch of backstabbing colleagues or a psycho manager who's trying to go out there and fail you at your probation in the next 6 months. Is that all not gambling? I hope this video makes people aware of the cognitive dissonance that exists and really how much of a dipshit the average person in society is. I mean, they don't even do any critical thinking for themselves, which is, by the way, exactly the results that government schools and the education systems in most countries are designed to produce. So the last thing that you should ever expect from people around you in society is them giving you helpful advice. And it really isn't, just getting a job and don't become a day trader, because here's some other advice I've gotten in the past from society around me. The first thing, when I was trying to get a date, people were telling me, you'll get a date just the way you are. When I was overweight with high body fat and being an internet nerd who sat in front of the computer literally all day with little social skills. No, you're just fine. You'll be able to get a date. And then the other thing that they told me was, just be yourself. You look fine. When I had a thick layer of tartar caked across the bottom 4 teeth, with weird ass stubble and a random long ass hair coming out of my chin area over here, because I didn't know I was supposed to be using a shaver at age 18. You know what else people have told me in society? It's not racism, it's you. That's what people told me when I was trying to date. I was getting a fucking 0.5% match rate on dating apps in Europe. You know, people were telling me that you just need better profile pictures. You just need to write a better profile. When with the exact same profile, with the exact same pictures, I was getting an 8 to 12% match rate in Asia. And when those people were confronted with that data, those people would quickly switch over to like, it's not Europe that's being racist and unfair to you. Have you ever considered that maybe you're just ugly, that's why you're not getting any matches and not getting any dates? Or how about the time where Bitcoin was under $1,000, which was as recently as 2016, and everyone was like, it has no value because that's what the mainstream media told me. It's only used to buy drugs and illegal shit on the internet. And Bitcoin has no value whatsoever. How about that? Or how about get the vaccine? Get the vaccine because the news and government said you might fall sick. Oh, because you might fall sick and go into the ICU. Or you might even die because of that if you don't get the vaccine. Oh, grandma might die and fall sick as well because you didn't get the vaccine. Oh, you got COVID-19 3 times while unvaccinated? Oh, you just got lucky, bro. Don't be an anti-vaxxer and just go take it, bro. And now you've started to trade and you started to see some profits. Well, you guys got lucky, bro. Keep applying for more jobs. Trading is not a consistent way to get income. Compare that to just getting a job and getting laid off every 2 years, because that's so consistent. At this point, after realizing that most societal advice is just a delicious or disgusting mix of cognitive dissonance, towing the line for mainstream media and the government, you know, without having any personal experience or having done any research for themselves, and crabs in the bucket syndrome, I just write off what most people in society have to say to me as bullshit, and you should too. That's it for today, and I hope you learned something. See you all in the next video. Goodbye.